Hey there guys and girls, welcome back to our course on Tableau. In our previous session, we took a look at our office supplies dataset where we tracked the sum of sales for the different years in our dataset, and we could see that we had a trend line start at 2014, drop in 2015, and make sales over a long period of time. But what if we wanted to take this a step further? What if we wanted to track other information on this line chart and track it over the same time but have different categories? Now what I mean is basically take different line charts and have it on the same plane view so that we can analyze them all together at the same time and find the differences. So what you need to do is find a dimension that we can put on this chart here and kind of analyze them at the same time. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and take our category here, okay? And what I want you to do is to drag that on color. Don't drag it into the columns or rows, right? But just drag it onto the color. And right away what you'll see is we now are analyzing different line charts over the same period of time and seeing sum of sales, but we've now marked it per our category. So now we could see that we have furniture sales in blue, we have office supplies in orange, and we have technology sales for our company in red. And we can kind of see this trend line where we see an initial dip in office supplies and a rise, and we see the same trend in technology. We see a dip and on the rise. But in furniture sales, we see a gradual increase. Now, if we think about this data, what could be the reason as to why we're seeing a similar trend between technology and office supplies? And that could be very similar in terms of the type of things that we are selling. Now, office supplies, right, include things like computers, printers, as well as scanners, cameras, and that kind of thing. And technology kind of falls into that type of a bucket here. So we can see the same kind of a trend where the office supplies and the technology are following a similar pattern, whereas furniture is kind of unrelated to office supplies in terms of the technology type and kind of sees a gradual increase in sales and is unrelated to the other types of trend lines here. The other type of information we can probably derive from this is maybe in 2015 our supply chain kind of got messed up when it came to office supplies and technology, so our sales dropped in those time periods, whereas furniture was not using the same supply chain, so we could see that those sales were undisrupted. So these are the kind of things that we can see in this multi-overlapping line view. Alright guys, now that we have our line chart with overlapping lines in place, let's go ahead and take a look at some formatting here to make this thing a little more visually appealing and a bit more informative and easy to understand. And the way we can start with is actually our axis. Let's go ahead and look at this for a second here. We can see that our sales over time for order dates never really goes below the 140, 130 mark. So for us to have this 0 to 100K doesn't really look too great here. So let's go ahead and edit our axis to adjust for this. And the way that we can do that is to just go over to our sales axis here and right click this and go to edit axis. And the way that we can do that is we want to kind of change the fact that it's starting from 0 and we want to start from 120 so that it's more evenly distributed here. So what we can do is just go over here and select fixed. And what you want to do is instead of having a fixed start at 0, which is 0K, we want to start at a more appropriate number. So let's go ahead and start at 120K. All right. And what that will do for us is it will give us a fixed range that starts at 120K and ends at our maximum value here, which is 285,939 with some decimal points. Now again, we're talking about dollars here, so we can always format this later that we're going to do in a second. So now that we have that in place, it looks a lot better and fills up the screen a bit better. Let's go ahead and drag our time here and make it a bit more uniform across our sheet so we can make this look a little bit better. Great, now that we've set this up in a way that we have more on our screen, let's go ahead and do a bit more formatting and make this a bit more informative. And what we can do is show the individual sales for each point of dot information on our line chart. So what you want to do is basically take our sales figure here and drop that onto our label. And now you will see the individual sales across time very apparently without having to use our tooltip. Now there are cases where you want to keep your tooltip in there because it's a much more cleaner preference for your viewers, but most of the time people want to see the actual information on the screen all at once. So now that we have that in place, let's go ahead and do a bit more formatting here. We'll rename our sheet and call this sheet sales over time. All right, and we're going to rename that sheet to that. We'll go ahead and right click our title here and move this to the center. We'll give it a nice color, make this thing maybe dark blue. Go ahead and apply that. Okay, And the other thing we can do is also look at the sales axis here and click format on that so that we can edit our axis and make it look a bit more appealing. So let's give that a light blue color here as well. And we'll also do the same thing for our different years here. We will also go ahead and give that a light blue shading as well and make that look pretty nice. Now look at that. It looks awesome, right? It looks really clean and very, very appealing to the eye, as well as informative. And that's the goal when you're creating any visualization. All right, guys, so now that we've discussed overlapping line charts here, in our next visual here, we're going to be getting into geographic visualizations. And after that, we're going to finally turn this thing into a beautiful dashboard for the very first time. So that being said, I'm going to end this lecture right here. I hope this was really informative, and please go ahead and play around with this, create your own version. All right, I want you guys to get really creative with this and go ahead and mess around with these settings and see how they affect your workbook, so that you're learning as fast as possible and you're also gathering the most information as possible as well. All right, guys, so in this session, we went over overlapping lines in line charts. We also went over how to change the ranges for axes. We also went over editing the sales on our actual marks, and we changed a little bit of formatting for our colors. That being said, guys, we're going to wrap it up right here. I hope this made sense, and in our next section, we're going to dive into our geographic visualizations. Thanks a lot, and I will see you there.